Welcome back. Welcome back to Success Made Simple. In this module, I want to kind of move on and talk about the next thing that you absolutely need if you want to achieve success. And this is going to be a weird thing to talk about, but this is called the cost of unsuccess. So, what does this mean? The cost of unsuccess. I think a lot of people, what they do in life is they say they want to be successful. A lot of people, if you talk to them, they say their goal is to be successful. Now, there's a big issue when it comes to you saying you want to be successful. And the two issues that I've come to notice is, number one, you don't know what success looks like to you. That's the first thing. The second thing, you've never evaluated what the cost of unsuccess looks like. And when I say the cost of unsuccess, what I'm saying is you've never sat there and evaluated what it costs to you to not be successful, which is the default path that most people are on. Most people by default are unsuccessful. What is the cost of you not changing? What is the cost of you maintaining the path that you're currently on? That is the cost of unsuccess. But in order for this to make a lot of sense to most people, I think it's important to kind of define this first. What does it mean to be successful? Now, in the last, I talked about having a vision. The vision is, like I mentioned, an overview of what you want your life to look like. But on a more minute, I guess, degree, we'll call it, when you kind of break things down into a more, I guess, a micro level, you want to define what success looks like to you. And the thing about success that I found is a lot of people repeat things they've heard from other people without really analyzing what those things mean or what those things entail. So, quick example. I know a lot of people who say they want to have a successful business. And I've asked these same people, one, have you ever started a business? And two, have you ever analyzed the people that have successful businesses based on the standards that you are setting when it comes to success? So if you're thinking that you want to have a business like Jeff Bezos, for example, or if you want to have a multi-million-dollar company, have you interviewed those people, or have you at least audited those people's lives to the best of your ability based on what you can publicly find about them on things like YouTube? If the answer is no, then give up on your dreams of success because you don't know what success looks like. And I say this because some people will say, oh, I want to be a billionaire. Cool. Did you ever consider that a lot of billionaires work all day, every day, and most of their lives are not spent with their family, but they're really spent maybe perhaps fighting legal battles, always being stressed out. Maybe they have to hire security because their family's always in danger. Perhaps they're always in danger. Perhaps they get forced to join into political conflicts or join into political discussions that they might not be interested in and they might not care about and they might think is above their head, but they have to because they have so much money and so much influence and so much power from a country perspective that it's mandatory that they be involved. And I'm not saying it's true of all billionaires, but it's just like a hypothetical scenario. If you never thought about that, then you don't know what success looks like. You don't know what being a billionaire looks like. You need to factor that into your idea of success, your ideal of success. Does that make sense? People often say, I want to be successful, but then you ask them what success looks like and they have no idea. I've met people moving down a bracket. Do you want to be a millionaire? Yes, I want to be a millionaire. Okay, cool. What have you done recently to start a business or to produce $1 million? Well, nothing. Okay, cool. Once you start trying to produce $1 million, you'll find that you probably have to work extremely hard to do so. Are you willing to work as hard as a millionaire works? No, I'm not willing to work very hard as a millionaire works. I say this because when you really break down and really like analyze what people say, a lot of times people say things like, oh, I want to be a millionaire. You don't want to be a millionaire. You just want $1 million in your bank account. So I know it sounds like it's the exact same thing, but there's a difference between being the kind of person that generates $1 million legally or illegally versus the kind of person that just has access to the things that money can buy. Hopefully this distinction makes sense. I had a friend one time. I'll kind of give you another example. I had a friend a couple years ago, and she was kind of debating whether she wanted to be a software engineer or a lawyer. And I asked her, I was like, that's such a unique, like binary kind of decision you're making. It's either software engineer or lawyer. Why these two things? And she goes, well, I want to be a lawyer or software engineer because I want to make a lot of money. I was like, okay, cool. Most people want to make lots of money, but why lawyer and why software engineer? And she said, well, I looked up lawyers and lawyers have a salary of like $150,000 and that'd be nice to have. And I want that money. So lawyer could be an option. And I was like, okay, what about software engineer? She was like, well, software engineer they also make a lot of money and they don't need like excessive schooling. So I thought that'd be a good option. And I figured perhaps I can be remote and be a software engineer that makes that much money. Cool. How many lawyers do you know? I don't know any lawyers. Okay, you should probably talk to lawyers and get an idea of what the work life is when it comes to a lawyer, how lawyers make money, how often they bill, what the standard of a law firm is when it comes to billing hours and the amount of work required for a case, the amount of stress they might go through, how much money they actually get to spend, how often they see their families. Like, you really need to go deep into what it means to be this thing, in this situation, a lawyer. Because in reality, as we're kind of having this conversation, me and her, I was kind of explaining to her, you don't want to be a lawyer and you don't want to be a software engineer. You want to be the kind of person that makes enough money so they can go on vacations a lot and travel. That was it. And there's a big distinction. You can have money working a low stress job that does not make you a millionaire, but earns you enough money where you can go remote and you can work in a different country where the spending power is higher, for example, and feel like a millionaire, have the spending power of a millionaire without on paper actually being a millionaire. And as we talked, she was like, okay, yeah, that's actually what I want. I was like, cool. The reason why I want to make this distinction is because the path you're chasing to be a lawyer or to be a software engineer is leading you off a cliff. You won't like that life. Because if you're a lawyer, you're not going to be able to be remote and go on all these vacations and live this like super luxurious lifestyle, at least not for the next maybe 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years until you retire. Or unless you're like in some big law firm and they have like certain perks. But what are the odds that you might get into that kind of law firm, especially at the rate you're going where she hadn't done research on being a lawyer, so she didn't even study or she didn't care about the law or anything like that. So she wasn't like passionate about these things. She just wanted the money. So it's like, realistically speaking, you're not even going to be a lawyer. You're not going to be successful at this because you haven't really you don't understand what success in that field truly looks like. Software engineer. She was actually trying to be a software engineer, but she hated coding and she hated all things related to technology. It's like, well, how can you be a software engineer? You don't even like technology. You don't like coding. You don't like any of these things that software engineers are typically involved in doing in their literal daily work life. But I want the money. Cool. The money is not the thing you want. The lifestyle and the things that a certain lifestyle can buy you, or you want the lifestyle that comes as a result of having the money. You don't necessarily want the money itself. Because if I said to you, you can be a millionaire, but you can't spend any of it, would you want to be a millionaire? Well, of course not. Okay, cool. So it's not the $1 million you want. It's not the title. It's not the label. You want the freedom. And you want the freedom with specific parameters. Big difference. And I'm sharing this long story with you because most people think this way. A lot of people say, I want success. And they look at the person with a nice fancy car or with a big house and they say, I want success just like that person. But they haven't sat there and analyzed, what is success for that person? What does success for that person look like? One more quick story I want to share. And this is kind of where this thought process came from for me. A few years ago, I think back in 2017 or 2018, I moved to Northern Virginia, where I currently live now. And I was one of those people who said, I want to be successful. And I had an idea of success based on just money. I wanted to be the kind of guy that carried a briefcase, wore a suit, and looked rich and had money in the bank. And that was it. And that's not really what success is. But when you watch a lot of TV shows or you talk to a lot of people in America, they'll convince you that that's what success looks like. So eventually I met this guy. He worked in IT. He worked at some like big company, and he was telling me about his boss. His boss was the CEO of some company, and she made, I think, like 500K, 600K, whatever. Financially speaking, she was the standard that I wanted to reach. And he's like, yeah, I don't envy her life. And I was like, why not? She's successful. And he was like, yeah, but is she really successful? He said she works at minimum 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. And even when she goes on vacations, because of the position she's in at her company, people still call her all the time, asking her questions. So even when she's on vacation, she's not on vacation. She's still working. She's just working further away from the office than she normally would. He said that one time he went in to like ask her questions and to kind of consult her about a few things for the company. And the week before, she had a baby photo. And he said he went in for this most recent consultation with her. It was like a college photo. Like it was the baby photo was gone, and it was a kid that looked like college age, so like 17 or 18 or 19, whatever. And he said, "Oh, is this like your nephew or niece? And what happened to the other picture? Wasn't that your son?" And the lady goes, "Yeah, that was my son, but it's an old picture. I don't get to spend much time. Long story short, she didn't get to spend much time with her family and take lots of photos because she dedicated her life to this career, working all the time." And so the most recent photo that she had a chance to actually get with her own son was him going to college. Now, I share the story because the overall point is, if you got to make $600,000 at the cost of never having a vacation to yourself, always having people ask you questions and needing your help for something, and missing out on your own son's entire childhood, would it be worth it to you? Is that what you think success looks like? And if it's a yes, then cool. Do exactly what she did, and you'll get probably similar results. If the answer is no, then you need to reevaluate what you think of as success. Because what you see her as, and she probably has a big house, she probably had a very nice car, but would you trade lives with her? Does her version of success look like the kind of version of success that you want? And again, this is why it's so important to have a vision. Because if you don't have a vision, you don't even know what you're looking for. You might fall into the trap of thinking, oh, her version of success looks good, until you live it, and then your life sucks and you don't like yourself and you hate yourself. But the problem is you have to invest time in order to create that life. And if you invest too much time, decades, you can't get that back. It's an irreversible decision. Is it worth it? That's up to you. So you got to figure out what it means to be successful for you, first of all. Now, second part of it, once you figure out what it means to be successful for you, you need to understand the cost of unsuccess. Staying mediocre, staying where you currently are, is very costly. This is the truth. If you're someone, for example, who I'll use a personal story, and I'll use a story that I think people will understand, hopefully well enough. When I was in college, I started getting into bodybuilding, and I wanted to get in better shape. I want to have a better physique, but in the grand scheme of things, when I thought about what I wanted down the line, and this wasn't me thinking too much about like vision specifically, but I did have an idea of what I wanted to look like when I was in my 60s and 70s. I wanted to be in shape and I wanted to look young. A part of me wanted to do this, and a part of me thought about the cost, unconsciously, of unsuccess at that time. And the cost of me staying the exact same, which was out of shape, was me being a kid that had asthma problems his entire life that was likely to increase as I got older. So my asthma problems would get worse as I got older. I'd be just like everyone else, unremarkable, out of shape, unhealthy. There's the financial cost, which I considered. The longer I'm not in shape, the more expensive my potential medical bills and my insurance premiums could get. This is a true cost. And the other cost that I thought of at the time was a lack of quality of life. And there was another cost, a social cost too. I wanted to get in shape, let's be real, because I wanted to attract women. There's a social cost as well. If I'm not in shape, women won't like me. At least that was my thought process at the time. And so when I say you have to evaluate the cost of unsuccess, this is what I mean. Not being successful by your own standards has a cost to it. You need to think about what those costs are and if those costs are worth it. And a lot of people, what they do is they see the cost of success and they don't consider the cost of unsuccess. And they trade the cost. Let me scroll out a little bit. They trade the cost of success for the cost of unsuccess because they think the cost of unsuccess is more affordable. Does that make sense? It's not. It almost never is. Rarely is there a situation where your ideal version of yourself isn't worth it. The cost of success was me waking up a little bit earlier than I normally would, eating slightly better than I normally would, training a little bit harder and going to the gym more than I normally would, drinking a little bit less than I normally would. That was the cost of success, at least when I'm in regards to the specific goal of getting in better shape and having a better physique. The cost of unsuccess we just went through. No dates, potentially. Bad health in the form of asthma. And I had really bad asthma when I was younger. Me working out removed my asthma. I don't really have asthma anymore. I've had a problem with asthma in like a decade at this point. But I would have if I thought the cost of unsuccess was more affordable. Does that make sense? Higher insurance premiums. A lot of people say, oh, my insurance bills are so high. This is the cost. You chose that cost. You thought that it was affordable for you. If it's not, go work out more. In this specific example of choosing success when it comes to your health versus not choosing success when it comes to your health. The choice is yours. Now, a lot of people think to themselves, well, it's difficult. It's difficult no matter what. It's difficult to be broke and have high insurance bills. It's also difficult to go to the gym. Choose your difficult. That's what it comes down to. So hopefully you understand these stories and hopefully you understand the point that I'm trying to make. You need to, figure out what success looks like to you. The ideal version of success, not the version of success that's being sold to you by everyone else around you, not by your parents, not by your siblings, not by your girlfriend or boyfriend or husband or wife, your boss, not by your president, not by the politicians, not by the school system, not by your aunties, your uncles, your grandmas, your grandpas, whoever. You need to figure out what success looks like to you. And then once you figure out what that version of success looks like to you, you need to evaluate the cost of it. And I'm saying you need to understand the actual raw numbers as best as you can. I'm talking about the social cost of it. I'm talking about the mental, the physical, all those costs, but the actual financial costs as well. Those are also important. If you choose not to, for example, be successful in your career, if you don't want to put in the extra effort to learn the things required to excel in your career, what's it going to cost you? It's going to cost you never affording a house. It's going to cost you never having a nice car. It's going to cost you never going on a vacation. It's going to cost you maybe never having a girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever you want to do. It's going to cost you financially. It's going to cost you socially. It's going to cost you physically. It's going to cost you financially. You got to pick, what am I willing to sacrifice? What am I willing to pay for in order to get the things that I want? Is it worth it to be successful? Choice is yours. So hopefully this all made sense. Hopefully, I can't talk right now. Hopefully this all made sense. This is module, 3 at this point, understanding the cost of unsuccess. Hopefully you understand what the cost of unsuccess means at this point. If I had to give you an action step, it would be to evaluate the cost of unsuccess. Whatever your current goal is for yourself, your bigger vision, and the ideal version of success that you have for yourself, really sit there and analyze, if I stay the way I am now, is it worth it? Or is it worth it to just put in a little bit more effort to achieve the things I want further on down the line? Does that make sense? So hope to see you in the next video. In the next one, we're going to be talking about how to evaluate your time appropriately. But until then, peace out.